Good evening, everybody. It's a Saturday night. I am your host for this evening, Apostate Alex. How is it going? Thank you so much for joining, everybody. We've got Jeff, PTS for life in the chat. We've got Karen. How you doing? Thank you for joining. Paige, Careful JC, Kata Baloo. Thank you. And thank you for bearing with me. It definitely took a couple of days to recover and process what went on this week. Hello, Michelle, as well. And Vault Digger, thank you for joining. So yeah, earlier this week, it was March 13th, L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, and I had organized a protest outside London Org to celebrate life without LRH. And obviously we protested in November. That was 3 days. This was just a one-off, one-day thing, and I lost my voice, as to which is to be expected. But it was definitely more of an emotional thing than I thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be hard, but it definitely hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I'm glad I took a couple of days to process it all, and thank you for bearing with me. So now we're going to do a bit of a recap and also share some exciting news in the UK anti-Scientology world. So let's crack on with a bit of some highlights from the protest on Wednesday. So for the first time in 10 years, I set foot in the Church of Scientology London. The last time I was there was when I was escorted to the door and told not to come back because I was declared a potential trouble source. Now, I continued studying Scientology courses from home through my extension course and talking to people, and was still a Scientologist for a couple of years afterwards. But the last time I was actually there in person was 10 years ago. And I started off the protest by delivering a cake for L. Ron Hubbard. And this is what happened. Let's have a little look at one of these highlights here. This is the birthday cake for the an Aftermath Foundation card. Oh, hold on. Let me just fast forward a bit. Okay, for the cult leader himself. What do we reckon? What do we reckon? The door's locked already. Let's have a little look. I haven't been in here in a while. Hello, hello. We've just come to deliver a birthday cake for Mr. Hubbard himself. Absolutely, I was just delivering to Hubbard. So happy birthday to him.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Have a lovely March 13th. Oh. Wow, that's the first time I've set foot in that property in 10 years. Wow. Woo! So that was the moment. Stuart, yes, I did see your comment, and we're going to be addressing that a little bit later. Let's just get through the protest stuff first. So as you can see, I delivered a cake. I went in and put it on the desk. The moment I walked in, there was a guy telling me, "This is private property, get out, you're not welcome here," which goes completely against the sign they have on the door that says "All are welcome, a place of public worship." So I knew that I was going to get some sort of reaction, but what I didn't expect was for the guy to take the cake and follow me out and drop it on the doorstep outside. What a waste of a good cake. I found that quite funny, and as I said, it was the first time I walked in that building for years, and it was interesting. The smell was, how buildings have like a smell, not necessarily a bad smell, but like, a scent, an aroma. The building smelled the same. It looked the same. I definitely had to take a minute. I was shaking afterwards when I got out, and I'd breathed and I was like, what just happened? Didn't think about it like that. So I was shaking for a while, and I was like, wow, just overwhelming sense of, I don't know, just what memories flushing back, good and bad. I used to spend all day, every day in that place. And as much as, there were some horrible things that went on that were traumatic for me, there were also some really good times, and ultimately Scientology had a bad experience on my life. But for a good period of one summer, like I was all day, every day out in the sunshine, selling books and being, thinking like I'm helping people. And, there were really good times that I had there. And so I was just all of those memories came flushing back, and as well as the bad times, you know, like the last time I was there, as I said, being escorted out of the building. And I got a sense of that a little bit at the IES protest in November when we were at St. Hill. There was an element of, you know, this is the first time I'm coming face to face with the Scientologists and standing up and shouting, and that was emotional. But this was the first time I set foot in the London building where I spent the majority of my time. So it was interesting, to say the least. Now, that incident soon became known as Cake Gate. A lot of you named it that. I think Mrs. J came up with it. Brilliant name. The cake that was then left on the floor outside the main entrance, that's actually on their property. I understand that little alcove is their property, so of course we're not gonna move it. We're gonna leave it where it is. And it was quite funny when the police showed up at one point. They called the police and said, Alex is, and everybody is blocking the entrance, and, you know, they're not letting people go in and so on. And I had a chat with the police and I said, look, we're not blocking the entrance at all. In fact, the only obstruction to the entrance is the cake that they've put on the floor. That's in the way. And he was like, what happened? And I explained. I went in, I gave them the cake. And the police said, well, if you've given it to them, it's their property. So they're the ones they've littered. And I said, they have littered, which I thought was funny. And I said, you know, also, it's a little bit concerning that it's blocking the fire exit. You know, if that building, the fire alarm goes off and everyone has to evacuate, there's an obstruction to the fire exit now because they put a cake in the way. And the police kind of laughed a little bit. And I said, but you know what? I will do this as a favor to them. If the fire alarm goes off and they have to escape, I personally will move the cake out of the way so it's not a trip hazard. I'll do that for them out of the kindness of my heart. And the police officer found that very funny. He laughed. They came back once or twice afterwards, but they made it very clear that, you know, we're not doing anything illegal. We have a right to protest. We are standing on public property. We weren't blocking the entrance. It just was that the fact that there was no people going in. We weren't blocking them. There just weren't anyone showing up, really. So the police were quite happy, and they did keep an eye on us. They drove past a few times just to see what we were doing, but they ultimately didn't give us too much trouble, and they were quite nice, actually, in their response. And they kind of looked after us just as much as you would expect. Another little incident that happened that was quite funny was them moving the table. So they had a little table out on the right-hand side by the entrance with little cupcakes and things that they had brought for their public. Now, they had organized an event for 6 p.m. on March 13th. It wasn't an Eleanor Hubbard birthday event. It was just an event for recruitment. Now, they advertised this. I got an invite to this event because I'm still on their mailing list. Obviously, I didn't reply or say that I was going, but it was a recruitment event that I think it was a bit of a flap to organize on the same day as the protest. So they had this cake stand and so on set up by the entrance. And just before the event started, which was taking place in the chapel, they moved the table down to the chapel. And it was just quite funny to watch. Now, you're seeing me use the name Katya. Katya, she is a Sea Org member. Most staff at London Org are not Sea Org. There's only a couple of them that are. Now, Katya is someone who was on staff when I was there, and I remember her very well. And she's the one moving the table. And it was just kind of embarrassing, really. And it was just quite funny to watch. So let's have a little look at this one. Katya! Don't drop the cakes! Don't drop the cakes! Don't drop the cakes! Don't drop the cakes! Uh-oh, it's doomed for failure, this. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O! She's succumbing to mest. Oh, no. Flunk, Katya, flunk! Flunk! I mean, I can't speak languages. Flunk! This is highly entertaining. Oh, no. Kate's laughing. So that was the moment. My mum is in the chat. Hello, mum. How are you doing? Thank you for joining. My mum has the wrench. So any of you cretins in the chat causing trouble, my mum will moderate you out, so be nice. Thank you for joining, Mum. So yeah, succumbing to Mest is matter, energy, space, and time. That's what Scientology called the physical universe. And as an OT, as a Thetan, you're supposed to be above Mest. You can create universes. And so when you are succumbing to Mest, that means you're an effect rather than create, which is what Scientologists want to avoid. Now, it was just quite funny to see them moving this table and doing so in the public realm in front of us protesters who are live streaming. So it was entertaining. There were lots of little fun things like that that went on during the day, but ultimately, I think what was interesting was just seeing these people who I haven't seen for so long, that last time I spoke to them were friends, you know, like Kate, who is in that video just there. She knows my mum in the chat. Kate was the one who was in charge of the whole program to, you know, not convert my mum to being a Scientologist, but to get her to be okay with the fact that I've signed a 1 billion year contract to dedicate my eternity to working for this organization. And it was Kate's job to work with me to try and make sure my mum's okay with that, so that she didn't become a problem when I moved to Florida and started working for the SEAL. So, you know, lots of personal connections here. And, you know, you could see some of the confusion in some of their eyes. You know, there was one point where a lady called Haley came out. Now, I didn't capture it on live stream because the camera was in a different location. But Haley is someone who works in Div 6 that I used to go book selling with. We were quite good friends. And she's very, you know, upstanding, theta and happy and, you know, kind of cool and fun. And she showed up and I was like, Haley, how are you? And she turned around. She was, oh my God, hi. And then you could see her face drop and the confusion, because she knows me for who I am. She knows who, you know, me as a person. And she knows that I'm not a big, bad, nasty person, you know, trying to get in the way of people's success, which is what Scientology teach SPs are like. And you could see that disconnect in her mind of like, hold on, Alex is there with the protesters, which means he's an SP, but I know that he's not. Like that doesn't, my experience of him doesn't match up with what I've been told an SP is. And you could see that confusion in their face. And it was particularly hard when we saw Charlie, for example. Charlie Wackley was my best mate at the time. We used to go out book selling all the time. And the last time I saw him, we were going out book selling. We were mates. And to see him now look at me like I don't exist, like I'm the devil, you know, that was hard. And that definitely took you know, I had to take a minute to process that and think about it. And he stepped on the cake. We put the cake on the floor, or the guard put the cake on the floor, and he came out and stepped on it to make sure that we knew how he felt, which was funny. But I was just trying to reach people at the org with personal messages, you know, by saying, Charlie, my number hasn't changed. If you ever want to leave or have a conversation, give me a call. You know, Charlie lives 5 minutes around the corner from me. I know exactly where he lives, and my number hasn't changed. We last communicated less than a year ago, actually, after I started my channel. But before he knew about it, he sent me a couple of texts, and, you know, we've been in touch over the last 10 years. I think he's blocked me now. But it was a moment of like all of these people that I know so well, and walking into the building. Yeah, it took its toll. So I'm glad I took a couple of days to process it and think about it. But yeah, it's just that emotional toll that you don't realize. And it's one thing sitting here doing live streams and talking about it and working on stuff behind the scenes, and that takes its toll in other ways. But actually being there in person, seeing all of these people, was, yeah, I don't know, that's harder to get your head around. And Harter, thank you so much for gifting a membership. That's very kind of you. Selena's in the chat. Selena from Wales. How are you doing? Thanks for joining. I know it's a late one here, but I just wanted to get this out of the way because I was meant to do this after the protest on Wednesday and kept pushing it back. And I thought, let's just get it out of the way and do it now. Fran, is the Scientology place in East Grinstead the main headquarters? Yes, it's the main headquarters of Scientology in the UK, down at St. Hill. That's where we protested in November. and where we will be again in October when the IES event happens. So yeah, that's their main headquarters, and London Org, where we were, is their London HQ. They also have Tottenham Court Road, the test centre, which is used just as like a book selling shop. They do have course rooms there, but they don't deliver courses there. And that's where we spent a lot of time as well. So yeah, and Harter, yeah, Liz Gale said she felt similarly wrecked by LA protests. Yeah, and it's a hard it's a hard thing to do, seeing where you were. Yeah, and it's just things like, I saw Mariana, who is my senior, along with Charlie. I saw Charlie's mum, Nat, and it almost gave me an opportunity to plant some seeds in their heads that you could only do with personal experience. I made a point of saying, Nat, when was the last time you saw Jason? Because Jason, who is Charlie and Matt's brother, who used to work at London Org, he's in the Sea Org over in LA now. So I know for a fact they haven't seen Jason in a long time. And, just by saying, when was the last time you saw Jason? I hope he's well. I'm sure he misses you. There's a lot of stuff that they'll just disregard in their minds, but that sort of thing is personal and hopefully gets them to start thinking. I'm not expecting anyone to just jump out and say, I'm out now. I'm leaving because I saw this sign at a protest. That's not going to happen. But the more personal seeds of doubt and things that we can plant in people's head, the better. That was the purpose of this protest on Wednesday, was to show people at London Org that it's okay to leave. We are out here having fun. We're happy. We were playing songs and dancing. The outside world is not a scary place that Scientology make you believe. We're not big, bad, nasty SPs. We can have fun. It's possible to be happy without L. Ron Hubbard and without Scientology. It's not out ethics to ditch Dianetics. That's one of the things that we were chanting, and that's the message we wanted to get across. And hopefully it worked. We did have a couple of conversations with people on the door that were going in, and we just said, look, you can believe in what you want. We're not here protesting Scientology and saying you're a cult and Xenu and all of that. That does have merit in certain situations, and that stops people joining, and it's that is a protest that is valid. But our protest on Wednesday was very much not that. The purpose was to get a message to people who are currently in, to say, if you want to leave, we're here to help. And hopefully that message got through. Our signage was amazing. Thank you to everybody who donated to help get the signage printed. We had party hats and party blowers and music, and it was just a really, really good time. And I wanted to also say thank you to everybody who showed up, who was there protesting with us. There were 18 people, and it definitely felt very supportive. Everybody there that I'm aware of is not an ex-Scientologist. I was the only one. So it felt like they were there to support me as well as protesting Scientology and get a message through to Scientologists. And it definitely felt like a little bit of a family. There were people that were there in November, they came back. And so thank you to those guys. I couldn't do this on my own. We're a community, we're doing this together, and it's with your guys' support and help that we're able to do that. So thank you to everyone that showed up, and everyone that watched on the live stream as well. You watching here live, commenting, all that stuff really, really helps. And actually, while we're on that, please press the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. All that support is what helps push the video out to more people. That's what pushes the message out. And hopefully one or two of those people that I used to know at London Org would have gone home that night and thought about their experience and knowledge of me as a former friend. And maybe they Googled me, maybe they tried to look up the video on YouTube, and maybe they saw some of the content that we've all been putting out. And maybe that started that seed of doubt process, that takes a long time. But who knows? We could be in a situation in a year or two's time where we hear from someone who said that this was one of the things, the catalysts that got them to think about what they're doing and got them to leave. Who knows, right? We can only hope. But the point is that we wanted to get that message across. Selena and Onyx had a really good chant. They came up with like a little song to sing the Aftermath Foundation's UK phone number, and it's quite catchy. It got in people's heads, and that was the point, is just show them that we're not big, bad, nasty people. One of the things that I said, I had a sign that said, we'll be thinking of you tomorrow at 2, because Thursdays at 2 p.m. is the end of the week in Scientology. And, 2 o'clock, everyone's running around like mad, trying to get their stats up, because you get in trouble if your stats are not up each week, and they count their stats at 2 o'clock on a Thursday. So by saying, we'll be thinking of you tomorrow at 2, it just plants that seed of, like, when you're busy, when you're rushing around, and when you're stressed, and when you're worried that you're going to get in trouble if your stats aren't up, just remember, we're out here, and we'll be thinking of you. And that's the message that we wanted to get across. PTS for life, Jeff. It's likely to be it's likely they'll be happier without LRH. Exactly. That's the thing. It's likely they'll be even happier. Craig, I'm surprised OSA did not have you blacklisted by the London org and everyone there after you did the IES protest last year. Yes, well, absolutely. I am on the blacklist. I'm not allowed in that building. But you have to remember that there's a big book in every org that has everyone's pictures that's an SP in the drawer. And, if they think someone's an SP, they'll look up in the book to see who they are, and so on. But they're only going to do that when someone creates trouble. So I walk in, and the 2 people at reception are staff members I didn't recognize, that started after I worked there, so they didn't know who I was. I walk in, and they're instantly not going to know who I am, except for this one guy who clearly did, who said, "Get out, private property, blah blah blah." So absolutely on the blacklist. That is what happened. But they are a little bit slow in getting that message across. Craig, great question. How did your meeting go at East Grinstead Council? So, update on that. My complaint to East Grinstead Town Council was meant to be heard last Friday, yesterday, and it wasn't, because it was postponed. Now, I've reported previously that there was a little bit of a kangaroo court set up. They had a panel of councillors who were all featured in Scientology videos on their promoting them on their website and so on. And I requested a panel of counselors who were not promoting Scientology and featuring in their propaganda. They came back and said no. So I made a mental health case, and I said, don't particularly think it's a great idea to force me to sit in a room with people who promote and actively support my abusers. It could potentially be re-traumatizing. And I got Chris Shelton to write a letter from his perspective as a mental health professional. He has a master's degree in the psychology of coercive control from the University of Salford, which is a UK university. He's qualified to talk about the mental health effects of trauma when it comes to cults. So I got him to write a letter to the council and it basically said, it can be re-traumatizing to make someone sit in the room with supporters of the abusers. So he recommended that isn't something the council made me do. And they heard, to my surprise, they got back to me and they said, we do not want to re-traumatize you, and we hear your mental health concerns, and I do in fact have a new date for the panel. Now, I have shared all of the letters so far that East Grinstead Town Council have given me that have been so far pretty negative. And in the interest of fairness, I'm going to share this one, which is a positive one, and this is the point I'm trying to make. I'm not attacking East Grinstead Town Council. I don't have a vendetta against them. I don't want to cause trouble. I just want to be heard, and I want them to stop supporting Scientology. So this is the letter that they wrote. This is good news and respect to them for finally seeing the light, but I did have to fight for it, which I shouldn't have had to do. But dear Mr. Barnes-Ross, that's me. Further to our letter dated 8th of March, your request has been considered, and we are writing to confirm the new arrangements for the complaints panel meeting. The meeting will now be heard on the 28th of March, commencing at 11:30 at East Court. The panel will comprise of Councillor Pond and Councillor Hughes. The council will also have 2 representative presents, one to take note. The other arrangements, as stated in our letter on the 19th of February, will remain the same, and we reiterate that no recordings, either video or audio, will be allowed on the council premises at any time. Please confirm by this date that you can attend, and so on. About the evidence has to be supplied. Yours sincerely. So this was the letter they sent me, and like I said, props to them for finally hearing what I'm saying about it being an impartial panel if the councillors support Scientology. So those 2 councillors are people who, as far as I'm aware, have not supported Scientology or been to their events or gone to St. Hill. They definitely do not appear in any Scientology propaganda or videos on their website. So I'm hoping that means I have a much fairer chance of having my complaint heard by the council, which will be happening, as you saw there, very shortly, the week after next. So I will be reporting back. As I've said already, I can't stream the meeting. It's not a public meeting. It's private. I can have one person with me, which I will do. They have to take minutes and notes from the meeting. And so I've requested that I can see the minutes before they're published to approve them, because otherwise there's the risk of it being one-sided. I'll get back to you on that when I hear from them on that message. But essentially, yes, the complaint is now being heard by two councillors who do not publicly appear in Scientology propaganda, which I think is a win. But it took a lot. I had to protest, my point, and email and have evidence and fight for it. Overall, I'm not happy at the fact that it had to go to that level of protestation in order for that to happen. It should just be part of their due process that if someone submits a complaint, the people hearing the complaint have nothing to do with it. And that just, I think, is how it should be done. And it wasn't. And eventually we got there, but I'm hoping this is setting a bit of an example so that next time there's a complaint hearing for someone else on a different topic, the council consider their process. And, that's what I'm calling for here. This is a local issue of national importance. A councillor recently resigned in East Grinstead because of their whole handling of this situation. And so that's why it's really important that it's given the time and attention that it needs. Talking of which, let's talk a little bit about Narconon. Necessary trouble. It looks like your persistence paid off. Good job, Alex. Thank you. And Polar Vortex. Yes, great news, Alex. Absolutely. Narconon. So this is what Stuart said earlier. Did you see The Guardian? Narconon being investigated over the Purif and auditing procedures. I did indeed. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I reported that The Guardian Observer, the Observer is the weekend paper for The Guardian. That's what they call it, The Observer, when they publish it on Sunday. The Guardian is what it's called during the week. I reported a couple of weeks ago that it was front page news. I've been working with Shanti Das, who's a journalist for The Guardian and for The Observer, for 9 months. May last year is when we first started speaking. We had a meeting about Narconon in the UK. I gave her a bunch of evidence and a load of comments, and we had a good discussion. She took the investigation on herself and spent 9 months working on it. And it was front page news a couple of weeks ago that Narconon is unregulated, that there was a major issue with the CQC, which is the Care Quality Commission. And she's done an amazing job with this investigation and with the reporting. And I've been keeping you guys a bit updated on some of the stuff that's happened since. I spoke to Shanti, and she made it really clear that that is not the first and only piece she's doing on Narconon. This is an ongoing situation that she's reporting on, and she does really want to do more and more about this story. I asked her if she wanted to come on my channel and we could have a chat about this whole process, and she wasn't 100% a big fan of that idea, but I'm hoping she will come on at some point. At the moment, it's not going to be possible because Scientology are throwing everything they can at her and at The Guardian to shut down this reporting. And I'm sure that there's a few restrictions on what she can and can't do and say publicly at the moment, because there's a lot of legal threats and litigation going on that The Guardian are dealing with. But regardless, they're not being intimidated. They're still continuing to push out the story, which, again, massive respect to The Guardian for that. Now, yesterday, the 15th of March, I published a story on Scientology Business, which is my blog. Go and check it out if you haven't already. Scientologybusiness.com is where I report on the UK and European operations, legal, financial sort of stuff to do with Scientology. And I published this on the 15th of March. Scientology's Narconon Rehab Centre removed from the NHS website. Now, the NHS in the UK is the National Health Service. That's the government-funded body that deals with healthcare. So they pay for your free health. Every British citizen gets free healthcare in the UK, and it's provided by the NHS. The hospitals and so on are all run by the NHS. And Narconon had a page on the NHS website. The NHS, it has all of the care providers and all of that listed on there. And I wrote to NHS and I complained and I said, Narconon is currently, they've had their ratings suspended. There's allegations and reports of abuse and trauma going on there, and they are not regulated by the CQC. And the CQC are, in fact, currently investigating. I think it should be taken off the website. Now, this article here shows the response that I got. Not the NHS came back and they did, in fact, remove Narconon from the NHS website, which I think was a big win. I also got a statement from the CQC themselves. Now, the CQC got back to me and they said they have reviewed the status of this provider. They have visited and will be writing to them to advise of our decision in line with the legal process. Let me continue this one. We have looked at the complaints we have previously received in relation to this provider, the majority of which fall outside our regulatory remit. However, if anyone has any information, new information or concerns, we would always ask that they share those with us. Now, I reported a couple of weeks ago that I got my hands on one of the complaints that was submitted to the CQC about Narconon, and it says, people are at risk. If there are people currently at Narconon, they're at risk of being abused and harmed in some fashion. Now, Narconon did not, sorry, the CQC did not investigate 14 out of 19 complaints that were made about Narconon. And so that's one of the big issues that is being raised here. And today, Shanti from The Guardian released another piece on The Guardian, which again furthers this story. Not only have the CQC investigated Narconon, Shanti now confirms that the Charity Commission is now also investigating Narconon in the UK, which is huge. It says case opened after the Observer investigation found that vulnerable people were allegedly subjected to psychological drills at the Narconon that left them broken and traumatized. Now, one thing that I want to highlight here is a quote of someone who sought treatment that it said, "You're helpless there, and the only way out is blind submission." Now, that is how people feel who are in Scientology, people who are vulnerable adults with drug problems that are seeking help and support from Narconon in Sussex. You're helpless. The only way out is blind submission. That is what people are saying is going on at Narconon. That is what happens at Narconon, and that is the only way out. And that's why it's a problem. Narconon essentially is saying we help people recover from the effects of drugs. The CQC is saying it's considered an alternative therapy and therefore doesn't fall under our remit because the CQC only regulates, actual medical interventions. And so not our problem. And what Shanti is trying to say here is, well, whose problem is it, right? This is a service provider that was on the NHS website that offers an alternative treatment for drug abuse and drug problems, and no one's regulating it. No one is checking that it's not harming people. People are saying it's harming people. Who's responsible here, right? Someone needs to do something. And whether that's the CQC or not, I don't know. But I think this is the start of some major change that we're going to see. And as the article points out, the Department of Department of Social Care, what's the official title? The Department of Health and Social Care, something like that. Department of Health and Social Care, yes, that's the government part of the government that's responsible for all these sorts of things, is involved and has an ongoing conversation with the CQC about this. And the Charity Commission are now looking into this. So big news, lots of movements in that space. There's also a lot of movements in the East Grinstead Council space, and I'll keep you updated on what's going on with that. There is something huge happening that's in the works that I can't wait to tell you about in the next few days, hopefully tomorrow, but we'll see. It's a lot. And when I say I'm working on this full time, this is what I mean. I use YouTube to share updates and tell you what I'm up to and what's been going on, and provide a platform for other people to speak out about their experiences. If they want to reach out to me, if you want to be on the channel, let me know. But that's what I use YouTube for. Most of the time I spend on this is actually working behind the scenes on stuff like this. And I'm so glad that we are starting to see some sort of effect as a result of the work that we're doing. And it's not just me, it's a whole group of people. There's a team effort. We are all taking part in this and helping in our own way. It's not just me. I can't take the credit for it. Shanti is the one who is leading this investigation, and the Guardian lawyers who are supporting them in doing this is huge. And we couldn't do it without all of them. So absolutely massive hats off to all of you guys for doing that. Craig, have you heard any news on the Paris org opening? Great question. No, it's all gone very quiet. I haven't heard anything whatsoever for about a week on Paris. Now, I know that right now happening in the US is the L. Ron Hubbard birthday event. I was under the impression that Paris was going to be opened before the LRH birthday event, but that hasn't happened. So I imagine it might be next week, the week after. I don't know. It is delayed for whatever reason. I know that the Sea Org are in place. They are on site. They're trying to get it over the line. They're now only a handful of staff members away from the 85 quota that they need to reach in order to open as ideal. So I imagine it's very, very soon. And I can't see a world in which Paris does not open ahead of the Olympics, which is happening this summer, just a stone's throw away from the org. So it will be happening soon. I'm keeping my ear to the ground, and of course we'll update you guys as soon as I know. But guys, thank you so much for joining. Before I wrap up here, I just want to say that if you want to support the channel in any way, please consider buying me a coffee, PayPal. The links are in the description down below. Channel memberships as well have been open for several months. You don't get massive, I don't do exclusive content. If I upload a video, members get it a day or so a little bit early before everyone else does, but I'm not doing exclusive content because I don't want to exclude anyone. But it does give you little emojis and stuff in the chat that you can use, and it just shows a little bit of support. You can also support by being a member on Buy Me a Coffee and all that sort of stuff, and I really, really appreciate that. But the best way of helping is liking, commenting, subscribing, so check that you've done all of that. And I really mean it when I say that I'm on war footing and I'm not fucking about.